Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. Let's talk a little bit about how to play faster. Now, guitar players are always obsessed with speed, we all know that. So I wanted to share a couple tips that helped me with speeding up my playing. I had, like anyone else, the shred phase in which I was just picking up the guitar, running scales to the metronome, and just do that all day. So there's a couple of things that I've recently figured out after years of wasting time like that, and I wanted to share a couple of these tips with you. Now, before we start, as always, make sure you check the links in the description. You'll find a lot of free and useful resources for your practice sessions. There's the free modern guitar toolkit down here, as well as a free 30 minutes training that I have that you should definitely check out. All the links are down here, everything's free, so give it a go. Now, back to today's topic. So when it comes to speed, there's a lot of contrasting opinions. Should you practice slow? Should you practice fast? Should you play fast? How do you practice with the metronome and stuff like that? I believe, first of all, that everything is true in some way. Everything applies in some context or another. The tricky thing is to actually figure out what you should do in your situation to break those limitations that you have in your playing in this very moment. Obviously, that's extremely difficult to figure out, especially if you're on your own and you're just watching videos after videos on YouTube. Everyone has different opinions. You end up just leaving more confused than before, so it's a giant mess at the end. And by the way, these are some of the things that I'm talking about with the students within the program at the moment. And obviously, me being there one-on-one, I can figure out exactly what is the problem, but I understand that not everybody has that chance. So I'll try with this video to give you my experience, first of all, the things that work for me, as well as give you different options and different ways you can practice how to play fast. And also, before we start, let me just say that playing fast is actually not important. You should not just focus on shredding. That is not the most important thing at all. So keep that in mind. Then, if you're committed to waste your next 100 to 1,000 hours trying to pursue speed on the guitar, then you should just keep watching this video. So first thing, practice with the metronome. This is pretty much a given, but the thing that most people don't talk about is the different ways you can practice with the metronome. So I'm gonna take as an example a scale line. Let's say we want to play a D major scale, like G Lydian. Let's try this pattern here. Just off the top of my mind, you can obviously do this. In different parts of the fretboard. So the first thing that everyone says is obviously to practice low, and that is actually very important, and I think that is always the first step you have to go through. And by the way, for this stage, the metronome is not important, in my opinion. At this stage, I want to focus entirely on the technique, and that means going super slow, not even focusing on the timing yet. I'm just focusing on, in this case, the legato technique, so hitting every hammer-on and pull-off as precise and as clean as possible and as effortless as possible. So I want to control the movements of my left hand. Especially the descending part is tricky with legato, so I want to make sure I have the monitor down there, so that's why I'm looking there. I want to make sure I am in control of the movement, of each finger. So I don't want to see something like this right here will not help you with speed. You want to minimize the movements as much as possible. Obviously, the least distance your fingers have to do, the fastest you're gonna play. So if you keep your fingers very close to the fretboard the whole time. That is just gonna help you. So I want to minimize the movements as much as possible. I would practice even slower than this, like extremely slow, just focusing really on the quality of each note, making sure everything sounds as clean as possible, making sure I am in control of the technique that I'm using. So that is step one always. Now most people stop here and then they just, from here they just try and play as fast as possible, which isn't entirely a bad idea, but we'll get back to this later. But you know, from here the next thing you want to do is most likely, you know, to turn on the metronome at something like a medium tempo. Okay, so now we're taking tempo and, you know, timing into the equation. This is very important, of course, so you don't want to skip this. You always want to practice with the metronome at some point. At this time I'm just focusing on the timing, making sure I can hit these triplets the best way, making sure everything is tight as much as possible. So I'm just focusing on timing. That would be step 2. I think we can go 70 in this case, and just gonna spend some time at a slow tempo, just focusing on timing. Make sure you're always thinking it in your head first. So focusing on timing and technique at the same time. Once you have this in place, now I think we can start to worry about speed. And so there's really a couple of ways you can go about this. You can, you know, the traditional way would be to just increase 5 to 10 BPM at a time and build up speed gradually this way, which is a good way of doing that. So yeah, you just do this literally. So from 70 we go to, you know, 80. Spend a little bit of time on this, then you feel comfortable, you go to 90 BPM. $100, $110, $120. You get the idea. Until you get to the faster tempos, like let's try 150. Let's try maybe 200. I'm obviously speeding up this process, but this can take, you know, weeks and months. You continue this until you get to the speed that you want. So this is a good way of doing that. There's another way that lately I've been gravitating towards a little bit more, which is trying to do larger speed gaps. And basically what I'm trying to do with this is trying to force speed out of my hands. So I want to try to play as fast as possible. And there's a really good lesson on YouTube from Martin Miller, and he talks about how in order to play fast you need to try and play as fast as you can, which is really good advice. Because you have to get used to all the differences that playing faster will present. Just like walking and running being two different things, you have to, you know, you don't practice running just by walking. That is very important to keep in mind. At this point is just try to find the highest BPM I can play at. I'm gonna do 4/8, so we can go to slower BPM, so let's do like 150. Let's try this. That's pretty fast. This will be 300 BPM. Okay, I'm struggling to think about what I'm playing, so I'm gonna slow it down a little bit. Pretty comfortable, so I'm gonna try 160. That's starting to get almost impossible. Okay, this right here would be, in my opinion, my limit, maybe 150, 160, because I'm literally struggling to think about what I'm playing. That's where you need to stop. From here, you go back. But instead of going back, 5 to 10 BPM at a time, what I like to do is go a lot slower than that. Like, I'm gonna jump like half speed, like 80 BPM. And then go back 160. Still not super clean, but do this basically larger gap of speed between the two, because this way I get the benefits of practicing slow and focusing on the technique again, but I also get the benefit of just trying to push the speed as much as possible. So this, in my opinion, would be a really good way of going about trying to play faster without having to waste time and like lose your mind with the metronome, just 5 to 10 BPM at a time. Another good way of doing this would be to go through different subdivisions. So if I set the BPM at like 120, I can do 16 notes. Triplets. Right, and so I have the 16 notes that are a little bit slower, so I can use that to practice at a slower speed, but I'm still at the same tempo. So at the same time, I'm also training my ability to lock into different subdivisions at the same tempo, which is very important when you're playing, when you're improvising. So it's a really important thing to practice. Right, so this is kind of the idea. These are some of the things that I usually go through when I'm trying to speed up a passage. It can be anything. Right now we've done sort of a legato example with some hybrid picking, but you can do this with strictly hybrid picking arpeggios. This would be quintuplets. From there, speed it up. Right here, this will be the limit, 150 for me. So from here, I would just go back by, let's say, 50, 60 BPM, or change subdivision, play it slow for a little bit, focus on the technique, and then from there jump, trying to push the limit. Yeah, guys, so that's kind of my take on how to play faster. Give it a try, find what works for you. That's always the most important thing. Definitely check out the links in the description for more free resources. I can't speak this language. Anyway, with that said, I'll see you guys in the next video. Ciao.